Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney. How you doing, Joe?
Great, man. How about you?
It's good. It's good to have you back, man. I like doing it solo. It's a little difficult sometimes, but I like that we get back together, give people some
And we're
updates about what's going on in the world.
yeah, and we're resurrecting something else. Or
Yeah, so today we're going over a study. I know some athletes have been missing this. I've been hitting on the science a little bit more in some of my solo podcasts, but today, Joe and I will get into updates, training, all that stuff. But we're gonna do that at the end of the podcast. Today specifically, we're going to be going over a study that was done at the end of 2024, December 2024, and the title of the study is "Hot but Not Cold Water Immersion Mitigates the Decline in Rate of Force Development Following Exercise-Induced Muscle Damage." And so what does all that mean? What are we actually covering? Well, over the last couple of podcasts, I've been talking about cold plunging, cold water immersion, and sauna use. And now we're getting into hot water immersion, which is different than like a sauna. This is actually just getting in a hot bath and staying submerged for a certain amount of time. I've seen a lot of evidence starting to peak up, like up here and there on this. For the last 1 to 2 years, I've even been hearing about some people utilizing it and how effective it can be if you really let your core body temperature get up there. So we're going to be talking about this today. And this study specifically was comparing, basically cold plunging with, let's just call it hot plunging, a hot bath, if you will, but not so much a plunge. You got to be in there for a while, and how it equates to recovery. So I have a lot of big picture takeaways from all of this. Not as much like, is hot better than cold? I mean, we can get into that, but ultimately, I will break down the study real quick, and then I'll get your thoughts, Joe. So what they had is they had 30 physically active males who did a exercise-induced muscle damage protocol training. So they did isokinetic knee extensions, which is like where you can the speed of the movement doesn't change. It doesn't matter how hard you go. Like the speed doesn't change. It's just more torque, more pressure on the system. Anyway, it can induce a lot of exercise damage. So they did that with all of these different people, and then they would have them do these different protocols for cold water immersion, hot water immersion, or a control, which was just a warm bath. And so essentially they would do, let me pull up the times. For cold water immersion, subjects sat up to their necks in 11 degrees Celsius water for 11 minutes, which is 51.8 degrees. Okay, so that's one thing that we got to talk about right off the bat is like, is that cold enough? A lot of people will cold plunge for a lot longer than 11 minutes if it's going to be at 50 degrees, and a lot shorter if it's going to be at like 35, 40 degrees. So I'm not in love with their cold water immersion protocol. Now, their hot water immersion protocol was very specific. If you're looking to do this, when we talk about some of the benefits, it says the subject sat in hot water up to their waist with their arms out of the water. The water temperature was 41 degrees Celsius, which is like 105 degrees Fahrenheit. And they would sit there until their body temperature reached around 100 to 102 degrees of Fahrenheit. Okay, that's 38.5 to 39 degrees Celsius. And they would sit there until that point, and then after they got to that point, they would sit there for 25 more minutes. And so, and they could drink water during and to stay hydrated and everything else. But I dove into like the full text of this. I'm like, well, how long is that? Because it's kind of arbitrary. It's like, wait until your body temperature reaches this and then stay in 25 minutes longer. And it looked like it equated anywhere to 41 to 47 minutes per athlete, if you will. So that's a long time in a hot bath. That's a long time to have to sit in there. Luckily, they weren't up to their necks because that would be probably quite painful. But anyway, overall, the findings suggest that the hot water immersion was better, albeit slightly, but it was better when it's talking about having to put out more force, more rate of force development, peak torque, all of these things. The recovery modality that is hot water immersion was better. And so that's kind of cat's out of the bag right away. Already some interesting research. But Joe, as you looked at this study, what did you find interesting?
I really liked so with the active males, how they specified that they had to do 6 hours of training per week, which surprisingly I haven't seen any of that. Usually they just arbitrarily say, active to moderately active, fit males for the last 3 to 6 months. But
Whichever college kids we could find. You
yeah,
know, I,
basically,
I was I was thinking about that this week. It's like we sometimes like this study is great, but sometimes it's like people are like, "Oh, this I found this study," and I'm like, that study's based off of like a couple of college kids who wanted $50 for the day and like don't really care about the outcome of what they're studying. But anyway, continue.
yeah. So that was cool because 6 hours training a week, essentially that's 6 training sessions. So that's pretty fit in my book. I like that they measured the torque and velocity. So I think they were going for, I guess, consistency and speed with the reps. And doing a 7 by 10 of anything is pretty fatiguing. So I thought the design in general was really good. And I did like that, the idea to go into the study about like, hot bath versus cold, because not everybody's going to be able to do a cold plunge, especially in the summer or whatever. How cold can your bath get if you don't have something cooling the water or dumping
Right.
buckets of ice? Like nobody's going to have access to ice, but everybody can access, hot water in a bath and just put it in there. So that's what also I really like. I really liked the studies that have easy practical application for people, not ones that say, hey, you need to get a hold of this awesome device that's going to cost you some money. So like barrier to entry, I guess that would be it. Um, but at the end, it's sort of like the the secret sauce to the hot bath was kind of what we've been preaching for how many years now, and it just comes down to
That's
blood
gonna be one of
flow.
my main takeaways. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was basically, and that was sort of like my, before I even read it, I was thinking, is this just another way to get blood flow? And yep.
Yeah, and that's something we've been talking about for years. And to hit on your other point, like just in case anybody's kind of new to recovery research or whatever, we've looked at this in many other studies and even the why behind it. It when you are trying to predict or assess an athlete's recovery, like speed and rate of force development seems to be always like one of the top markers. If you're wondering, it's like why didn't they just look at their inflammation markers in their blood or something like that? That it always comes out to being like, hey, they do like these jump tests, they do all these like rate of force development tests. Those always seem to be at the top of the food chain when it comes to assessing someone's recovery and ability to basically perform, because that's what recovery is, the ability to perform again in the next session or whatever. So just to hit on your point, because you liked that, but I want to make sure other people understood that. But yeah, man, that was one of my biggest takeaways was blood flow. Is like, oh, okay, like, and that used to be the claim of why cold plunging was effective. It was supposed to constrict all of the blood flow, right? And so, and this is the theory behind it. What's supposed to happen with cold plunging or cold exposure is what happens is your body sends all the blood from extremities to your organs, to your core, and then once you get out of the cold, it throws the blood back out. So it's like forcing this massive amount of blood volume to move in and then back out. And that's why, like, at least that was how it was explained to me why it was supposed to be so effective. But then there are all these other things that cold water does, which is like blunt inflammation, possibly hypertrophy signals, and all these kind of things, where some of the negative stuff comes in, which I talked about in a recent podcast. So blood flow is king. I think that's the main thing that you have to know if you're looking to do any kind of recovery modality.
Yeah, and I actually did like the going into further explanation as to why the hot bath did that is because of vasodilation, opening blood cells instead of
Mm-hmm.
just like movement for that. So that was kind of nice just to get in a little um, deeper look into it. But that was the main thing. I mean, and I was actually curious, and I was going to ask you about it. So like, could you just sub a hot bath with sauna if you're raising your
Yeah,
core
see, that's
temperature?
what I think that you could, and that's what I'm curious. So this is newer research, and this always happens, right? Like, um, things kind of start slow. People are going to push back against it. In a couple of years, you'll be seeing all the influencers getting in hot baths with little rubber duckies swimming around them, right? Like it'll just be the next thing, and then you'll see all the Instagram content of like cold plunging is dead. Here's why. Like all that's coming. You see a study like this, it's coming. It's just like this was done in December 2024. The rest of mainstream will keep up. It'll probably take them about 2 years to catch up to it. Just mark my words now. Maybe we can play this clip in like 2 or 3 years and you'll see. But that's what's going to happen. So is raising your core body temperature in a sauna just as effective? And I think so, because it's interesting to me what they were measuring, and the fact that they were trying to get someone's core body temperature up and then maintain it for 25 minutes after they got it up. Like, I find that very interesting, because to me that means modality is not important. So to me, it's like, if you could do this in a sauna, a hot tub, hot bath, outside, just like when it's 108 degrees and feels like 127 in the middle of summer here in Texas, I guarantee my core temperature is getting up, much hotter, especially like if I'm outside for a couple of hours or whatever. So yeah, I do think that there's just a lot of like benefits there, but we'll see more research come out about that, because there's one unpublished study that like also is pointing towards the fact that repeated heat exposure can also blunt hypertrophy. I'm not saying that's what cold plunging does. That's why some people are like, they don't want to do it. Now there's like one unpublished study. It's not official. Don't take these words as like something that's happening or this is true, that they're saying that can happen with repeated heat exposure, hot water immersion. But I don't know if that's going to come to fruition or mean anything. So I do feel like blood flow is king. So I'll kind of go over like my 4 main points from this study. And so the first one is, it's very possible that hot may be better than cold when it comes to recovery. It has the edge from like a mechanism standpoint, but it doesn't have the research yet. But it's very possible that heat is going to outpace cold for recovery if you need to recover, especially in the performance modality, right? Like if you need to put out more peak force or whatever, and we're talking about actual recovery benefits there. Now, my second takeaway, exactly what you said, blood flow is king, and it always will be. We've been talking about this for years. It just seems like it doesn't matter if you're injured, doesn't matter if you want to recover. It really doesn't matter what it is. Nutrient delivery to a site on your body is provided via blood. Like, so every recovery modality does this in some capacity. So hot water immersion, vasodilation, more blood flow, more blood in and out of a certain area. Cold exposure, I already kind of explained the mechanism of how that can theoretically increase blood flow post cold exposure to an area. Then we talk about compression modalities. They are essentially doing the same thing, getting blood in and out of an area, or like the E-stim devices, right? They're just pumping a site over and over again to get blood flow in and out of an area. Helps speed up recovery. That's pretty proven. But what's funny about all of this is like those 3 things that I mentioned. If we cold plunge, let's just say you bought a hot tub as opposed to using your bath, or you bought some sort of compression, like where it's like squeezing contraction or E-stim, that's thousands and thousands of dollars of recovery. But when we're just looking at vasodilation, we're just trying to get blood in and out of an area. Nothing ever really beats active recovery, which is hilarious. It's like nothing, like the research is very clear over and over again. The best form of recovery, hands down, over your cold plunge, over your hot water immersion, over your E-stim, the best form of recovery is just active recovery. Going on a walk, spinning on a bike, doing these things that it cannot be beat. And I don't know if it ever will be beaten. And it's because of the blood flow modality. And you don't need anything to do it. You can just go for a walk. You can just get on an Airdyne, and go light for an hour, 30 minutes if you're really struggling with recovery. And so blood flow is king, and honestly, it always will be. So if you're really looking for all these other recovery modalities, you can stop. Nothing's going to be active recovery. So that's like my biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I got 2 more, but you go ahead.
Yeah. It makes it really easy for the hot plunge for you to just use it in as you need. And at least like with the cold plunge, you have the mental the mental side of it. But I'm not going to sit in a hot bath 30, 40 minutes after, most training sessions. It's probably going to be done after like
Yeah.
something really hard.
And that was my biggest thing is like my problem with the study was I think the cold plunge was not cold enough and the duration was too short. Because a lot of the research I had read when we've reviewed this previously is like if you're in around the 50 to 55 degree mark, athletes were staying in for a very long period of time. Like even professional athletes who get in at like 50 to 55 degrees, they're staying in for like a half hour or something like that. And we may have to I may have to look and see what the exact, I could be wrong on that, but 50 to 55, you're typically staying in for a lot longer than 11 minutes. I thought. I could be wrong on that. I have to go back and check the literature. And then the shorter duration means the increase in cold. Now, you're not staying 40 degrees for 11 minutes or 35 degrees for 11 minutes. Those are typically 3 to 5 minutes, something like that. But typically, that's what I saw in the research was there's a direct correlation with how cold it was and the duration. So I didn't seem like 50 and 11 minutes was good. And then that's my biggest problem with the hot water immersion is yeah, I don't have 40 to 60 minutes to sit in a hot bath and recover. Like if I would rather just go on an additional walk, get some additional steps in. I would rather do a mobility session, anything else aside from sit in a bath and do nothing for an hour. That's very, very tough for me. But my third takeaway, and this is just more me zooming out, looking at this stuff over and over again, and this is my third takeaway, just maybe do nothing after you work out. Just try that out. Don't do anything. And I mean, don't do any massive recovery modality thing for after your training. Get some solid nutrition, get some protein, get some carbohydrates from a clean source in there, get some micronutrients, get hydrated, rehydrate, all those things, but then just let your body do what it wants. Because if the unpublished study I'm talking about where people are hopping in a hot bath after the fact repeatedly, if it actually ends up proving to be true that it affects hypertrophy, and we already know cold does if you jump in right after after a training session, cold will blunt hypertrophy signaling. Let the body do what it wants for at least 12, 24 hours. And that means all recovery modality, just throw them out the window. Don't worry about them until you're about 24 hours out and if you feel like you need it. And so maybe let's just stay away from recovery modalities unless they're absolutely necessary. Your body knows what it's doing, right? Our bodies know what they're doing when they get inflammation, when all these things happen. Just let your body do what it wants for 24 hours before you kick in and you're trying to stop doing what the body's naturally been designed to do. Just get out of the way for 24 hours, let the body do what it wants, hydrate, get some nutrition, and that's about it. But the fourth thing, this is the only place where I feel like cold water immersion wins. If you need a quick turnaround for performance, cold will win out. And so if you had some sort of competition where let's say it's a full day and you have a break in between the competition, or it's a 2-day competition or something like that where there's competition one day, competition next day, this is where you would probably want to put in cold water immersion because it does blunt a ton of inflammation, numbs the area, reduces a lot of the pain, swelling, whatever, which I was just saying hey, let's get out of the way, let those things happen. That's for optimizing recovery and adaptation to exercise and training after it happens. If you need to not recover, you don't want the inflammation to be there because you need to perform again quickly, it basically by numbing and reducing inflammation, it's the same of taking ibuprofen, right? It's well, should I be doing that? It's well, you could if you want to blunt everything your body's trying to do because you have to perform again, and this is very uncommon practice, then yeah, go for it. But that's the only place I see cold water immersion winning out. And to be honest, even when you and I are doing events, whatever, if we're doing High Rocks or Spartan, those still aren't 2-day things, right? So it's the chances of you having a 2-day competition or a 6-hour break between something I can't see that being useful for most athletes out there, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, not much else to add there.
Yeah, so I think that basically covers everything on this one. It's some emerging research that might state, hey, hot might be better than cold, or sauna, just getting hot in general. Anything you could do to increase blood flow is ultimately what I think you should be doing. So that's the science on this one. You guys can go check it out. But that's it for the study. Joe, how's life?
Great. So I think the last time we went over updates, it was before I got my second PRP injection in my heel. So I have a heel spur, and that started bothering me again. So I got another injection, and within a week, my heel's back to pretty basically 100%, at least the best I can do. So it's wheels up, running. All my pacing and running has been way better since. My zone 2 pacing's way faster again. I've been running some fairly more intense intervals, a lot of 400s and 800s, and that pacing has been good and consistent when I go throughout my workout. So yeah, that's been really good. That's basically it. Yeah, and weather is fantastic here. So yeah, training's great. I haven't really been sore that bad at all. Still sticking with
You doing hard to kill?
Yep, yep. And
Yeah.
because I'm specifically training for my mile and a half time for my or run for the Air Force, I might switch out one of the aerobic mixed modal aerobic days for like my 400s or my 800s because I need to actually get some like fast running in, and then my normal fifth day is a zone 2 day. But I did do, man, one of the, was it strength endurance day? It was with deadlifts, push press, and
That was the high volume day.
toast to bar. Yeah, that was awful.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and my body was just like, you
I think
have
we all
not
felt
done
that one.
something like this in a while. It's like, do this for 18 minutes. I haven't done, like, normally it's like, we'll go hard for a little bit, but then there's that rest. But it's like, no, you're doing this for 18 minutes and then you're doing it again. And even though I'm the one that inputs the programming and I looked at it before, I did it wrong. I doubled the deadlifts. And so I looked at it after the first one and I'm like, holy crap, maybe that's also why it was so terrible, because I doubled the deadlifts. And yeah, that definitely, it kicked everyone's butt, but I think that was a good, a classic Meet Yourself Tuesday moment or whatever.
Yeah, that one got me. I was like, who programmed this? Because like, it was a lot, something that we hadn't done in a while. But going back, I kind of did that intentionally to like hit some volume and like get things going. But yeah, I was pretty sore after that one. Training wise for me, yeah, I've been on the hard to kill track. And what I've actually been paying attention to this time, and this is like our unofficial sponsor, right, Garmin, is do you ever look at it where it says like if you're maintaining fitness, detraining, recovery, or productive? Like, does yours does
Every
all
once in a
that?
while, yeah,
Like,
I'll look at them. Yeah.
yeah. I've been paying attention to that a lot lately because it has like this load ratio and all these things, and I've been paying attention to it since I got on the hard to kill track again. And for the most part, I've been in the productive category, other than like dropping back to maintaining like a day or two after a rest day. And I've really been paying attention to that, trying to keep my load up high. And that's just something I've been doing differently. But what's interesting is like since being officially on the hard to kill track and like being strict with just following the programming, my load ratios are also all in the optimal zone. For how Garmin does it is they basically have kind of three zones that they're tracking, like a high threshold, and then they have like a kind of like a sprint interval threshold, and then they have like the zone 2 threshold or zone 2 area, and they have like all these based off of your own training. They tell you whether or not you're being productive, or hey, you don't do enough zone 4 stuff, or you don't do enough zone 2 stuff. If you have a Garmin, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can go look at it. But it's funny, it's like 2-3 weeks on hard to kill, and all of that balances itself out right away. It's like I'm in the ideal category for like how much sprint interval training I should be doing, how much kind of like zone 4 threshold, and then same with zone 2. It's like all in the optimal zone, which it hadn't been previously. I had like too much zone 2 low intensity stuff and not enough high intensity stuff. So it's cool to see all of that shake out. But I should note I've also been doing most of the Meet Yourself Saturdays, so that's why my zone 4 threshold stuff is pretty high. And I've really been enjoying it, man. There was that session that kicked my butt, and one unprogrammed session that absolutely kicked my butt. And I think it's hilarious how these things, just like if you're not doing them constantly, they can kick your butt. And I it was like a weekend or whatever. I wanted to do one additional training day. I'd done all the hard to kill training sessions, and I was like, oh, let's go to the Garmin suggested run. What do you got for me today, Garmin? And they were like, how about 6 400s? And I was like, doesn't sound too bad. Like, let's try it out. And so it was like a 10-minute warm up and then 6 400s. And I got like progressively harder. I did like negative splits. I was trying to find out like how fast I wanted to go on these 400s. So I was getting faster every time, with my final sixth one being my fastest time. And then it was ended with like another 10-minute cool down run. Dude, I was sore for like 8 days after that. Like in all the, not like necessarily like muscular sore. It wasn't like, oh, my quads, my hamstrings. It's like my feet and my ankles and my Achilles, like all of those kind of things were sore because I had not sprinted on concrete in such a long time. Like this was just a road run. So like when it told me to rest, I would rest and then run. All the sprinting I've been doing has been on my true form, like my treadmill. So typically if we do any speed work, I'm doing it there, but it's got those big cushion pads, right? It's like optimal, like running form, all that kind of stuff. I never really feel it too much on those, but sprinting on the road, that took me down a notch. Definitely humbled me. I gotta get off the treadmill a little bit is what my takeaway. I need to make sure I'm doing some running on the road periodically.
Yeah, my zone 2 is always on the road. There's actually a boardwalk section, but my 400s and 800s I've been going to the track, and that's been really good. Mine got my one Achilles, the opposite side got sore this last time. Last 2 times I went to the track, I actually had to dodge some either Marines one time, and I think Air Force, maybe some sort of unit that was coming through. They were doing like vested, all full workouts all around the track. But those have been fun. Oh, my Garmin is also like in the green, productive. I normally I haven't looked at it for so long because usually it yells at me for just not being in shape. But it's pretty happy with me, and I even got an additional VO2 max point recently. So that's encouraging. Yay.
Well, and that's my point, man. Is like, it's like I'm sitting here when I program trying to balance all these areas, and then it's nice to have this additional objective measure that's saying, yeah, you are perfectly well balanced and productive in training. And I'm like, thank you. You know, that's what we're trying to do. Like, and it's not even taking into account like all the other stuff we do. It's really just looking at cardiovascularly, how are you doing across different like zones of training. We're also looking at like, okay, are there enough isometric contractions? Are there enough different planes of movement? And like, so we're factoring in even more than what the Garmin is telling us. Hey, you are optimized correctly and like things are good. But it's also like we're taking in more into account. So it's just good to have that like additional objective measure that says that we're doing well, which is awesome.
And could be a complete coincidence with the VO2 max up and being productive. But after my track day workout, so normally I'll do at least 2 laps afterwards. It's like I'll go to the very far lane, and I'll do like a zone 2 cool down. But the last couple of workouts, what I've been doing is I've been doing backwards running on the straightaways, and then turning around on the curves and going forward, just zone 2, and then on the straightaways turning around going backwards, because we had that study last year about all the benefits of backwards running, and so I was like, I'm just going to kind of try and incorporate it, somehow. And I'm gonna do it with my cooldowns, and I've actually really liked it.
That's awesome. I remember I did some of that way back in the day. I think we've talked about it several times, how like some elite runner told me like, hey, you want to get rid of shin splints, run backwards. And I did, and barefoot, like was his 2 recommendations. And I've never had shin splints since, which is just seems odd. Things like that in the body don't normally work. It's not like do this one time for 6 weeks and you'll never have a problem again. So I don't know if that's the actual reason, but it can be beneficial for sure.
Yeah, definitely felt the difference in muscle activation when going backwards. Granted, it's the end of the workout. One day I might do that as like a 30-minute thing, like straightaways, backwards, turn around at the turn for a while. I do recommend it on the track because at least you have the guidelines like the entire time. And even so, I'm turning around to make sure I'm not running into anybody. Usually I'm by myself, but yeah, that's good.
Running backwards is not easy. Yeah, I've done it on the treadmill and stuff. It's just hard to do. It's hard to do at like any like reasonable pace. Cool. Well, I think that's it for this one. Really cool stuff, emerging research. Joe and I will be coming back on the podcast a little bit more frequently with some studies. I was actually like really excited to dive into this one because we haven't done one in a while. And I just like to keep up to date on the research and nerding out on this stuff. So you can expect more of that on the podcast. If anyone is looking to have productive, objectively, subjectively training, go to Garage Gym Athlete. Sign up for a free trial. We'd love to have you. For all of our athletes in there, putting in the work. I see you. I see you commenting. It's awesome to have you in the new training app and everything. So good to have all of you. But that's it for this one. Remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you.